thank the Friedman family for hosting. I want to thank all of the people involved who helped make this happen. I don't know who all of you are, but you all know who you are. And it's a busy time from one yontif to another yontif and there was a bunch of people who really said, no, we need to do something. Aseres Yimei Tshuva, we can't just go through it. So wishing all of you the schus harabim, should be a schus for your families, for Gemar Chasima Tova and Bracha V'Atzlacha. Is Gitty? Yes. So I want to acknowledge we have Mrs. Klar here, who we all know had some really challenging Rosh Hashanah. If you just look on the news, you might figure it out. But Mendy was telling me this morning that his father is a good friends with a big posek in Eretz Yisrael named Rav Asher Weiss. You may have heard of him. So he's world famous, and he was made aware of the situation. And I want to share with you his perspective. Very short. He said he sent a voice note to maybe from Mendy's father's phone that went to Mendy, and he said, it's an armed person, very dangerous. He broke into a house. What would it have been if it was just you and your wife sitting there? And could it be possible that it was the schus that you had 25 people at your table and the guy was off guard and he ran away? And it was dangerous. He came in, but no one got hurt. No real damage was incurred besides for being shaken up. Could it be that it was the dates that you just ate, the silka, sheyistalko sonenu, sheyitamo evenu, that you just said, that maybe that had a shmira? So how do you, when we hear of things, we don't just pass them by. I think it's important to see how a big person sees events that happen every day. And speaking of events, today's October 8th. Yesterday was October 7th. And it's a year since terrible tragedies, images that we try to unsee, and horrible stories that we don't really know how to process. We didn't know how to process it last year, and now it's a year later. And I think that there's a little bit sometimes in our world. There's tension between different types. I'm this type and you're that type, and what kind of types were those people? And that's very dangerous talk. And that's what I want to talk about. So I'm going to go through with you some of a parak in Malachim with Eliyahu Hanavi. To start with Eliyahu Hanavi. Eliyahu Hanavi was a very successful Navi. Very famous. Everyone heard of Eliyahu Hanavi? But he was frustrated with the Jewish people. And after a big victory in his life, the most famous that anyone can think from your Navi days. I mean, girls learn more Navi than boys these days. What was like Eliyahu's big moment? The famous showdown with the Nevi'ei Habal, Har Carmel, right? It culminates, right, and the fire came down, and it showed that he was right and they were wrong, and it culminates with Hashem Hu Elokim, that statement that we're going to conclude Yom Kippur with, Hashem Hu Elokim. But he's still frustrated because there's still Jewish people that are worshiping Avodah Zarah, and Achav and Izevel, who are Rishayim, say they want to pursue Eliyahu for all of his zealotry, and they put a price on his head, and he goes off into the desert, and he says, Hashem, Kach nafshi, take my life, Ki lo tov eidechem yavaisai. I've had it. I'm done. I'm frustrated with the people. Just take me away. He goes to sleep. And a malach comes and gives him a little bit of food to eat, and a malach wakes him up and says, "You've had a little bit to eat. Now, on the basis of that food, you should go on a journey." And Eliyahu walks for 40 days and 40 nights. Think if that sounds familiar. He walks for 40 days and 40 nights Ad Arboim Yom Varboim Laila Ad Har HaElokim Chorev, until Har Sinai. Vayavo Shom Al Ha'ar, and he comes there to a cave, and he sleeps there. And Hashem comes to him, and Hashem says, Ma'alach Hapoy Eliyahu, what are you doing here, Eliyahu? What are you doing here? And he says, Kano kinesi LaHashem, I've been very zealous for Hashem. Ki ozvu brischa b'nei Yisrael, the b'nei Yisrael have left your bris. They destroyed your Mizbeach, they worship Avodah Zarah, and only I'm left, and they want to take me too. And Hashem says, go out to the mountain before Hashem, and Hashem will pass by. V'ruach gedola v'chazak, and there will be a mighty wind, mefarek harim, breaking the mountains, u'mishaber sloim, and shattering the rocks, lifnei Hashem. But loy baruach Hashem, but Hashem's not in that wind. V'yachar haruach rash, and after the wind is going to be a shaking, like an earthquake. Loy barash Hashem, Hashem's not going to be there. V'yachar harash eish, and after that's going to be fire. Loy ba'eish Hashem, Hashem's not in the fire. V'yachar ha'eish, and after the fire, kol demama daka, there will be a thin, still voice. And when Eliyahu heard this, he hid his face in his aderes, in his special garment, his aderes Eliyahu, and he went out, and he went to the entrance of the cave, and the same conversation happens again. And Hashem says, Malach hapoy Eliyahu, exact same words as before. What are you doing here, Eliyahu? And he says the same statement, Kanoi kinesi, I was zealous for Hashem, the people left your bris, and I'm the only one left, and they want to take me. And Hashem says, go and appoint Elisha as your replacement. What's happening? The Radvaz, who lived in Spain in the 14 and 1500s, he died in Eretz Yisrael. He was banished from Spain and died in Sfas. This is what he says is happening here in the Pasuk. There are three different types of Nevi'im, the Mechilta says. There's a kind of prophet who defends the honor of God, but does not defend the honor of the people. There is a kind of prophet who defends the honor of God and the people, and there's a kind of prophet who just defends the honor of the people. Moshe is, of course, the prototype of what a Navi should be. Moshe stood up for Hashem, but he also stood up for the people. Moshe famously said, V'im ayin, if you cannot forgive the people, erase me. He put himself on the line. All of the concept of teshuvah that we have during this time of year, we're saying slichos every morning, Vayomer Hashem salachti kedvarecha, all of those phrases, the Yud Gimel Midos, all of that happened was Moshe beseeching Hashem on behalf of the people, not for himself. He was saying, they sinned, but forgive them. Forgive them. They're good people. Don't destroy them. Moshe was sticking up for the people. And the Mechilta says, and in the example of the person who stuck up for Hashem, but not for the people, is Eliyahu. Again, I couldn't say this on my own. This is what the Mechilta says, and this is what what the Radvaz says. And Hashem was trying to tell Eliyahu, you need to learn from Moshe Rabbeinu. So I want you to get out of this mindset of, they're after me, I'm frustrated with the people, they're no good, just let me leave this world behind and I can be in Gan Eden with you in Shamayim and forget about them. Hashem said, no, let me try to remind you of where you come from, of who you're supposed to be studying from. Go 40 days and 40 nights without food, like Moshe. And where are you going to go? You're going to go to Har Sinai, where Moshe went. And you're going to go to the cave, to the cleft in the rock, where Hashem's glory passed by Moshe. And so Hashem said, once he got there, what are you doing here, Eliyahu? Like, maybe this has jogged your memory. Maybe now you're realizing that you shouldn't just be betraying the people, but you should be sticking up for them. And Eliyahu says these words. I'll say it slower now. Kano kinesi LaHashem. I was very zealous for Hashem. Ki ozvu brischa b'nei Yisrael, because the b'nei Yisrael, they weren't faithful. They left your bris. And Hashem says, go out, and the wind is going to come. And the wind is not going to break the people. The wind is just going to break the rocks. And the earthquakes are not going to break the people. They're just going to break the mountains. And the fire is not going to destroy the people. You're going to find God only in the still, silent voice that encourages them. But it didn't help. This did not help. And again, so after this, Hashem said, okay, maybe now you got it. Now you got the message. And he said again, Malach hapoy Elio, what are you doing here, Elio? And he said the same thing, Kanoi kinesi Hashem. I was zealous for the honor of Hashem, for what's the right thing. Ozvu brischa b'nei Yisrael. They left your bris, the people. They weren't from. They weren't good. And Hashem said, that's it. There's no more hope for you. Go appoint your replacement. Go appoint Elisha. He's going to become the Navi. And for you, the language of the Mechilta is Efshi b'nevuasech. I don't want your nevuah. What am I going to do with you? The Radvaz says, I can't kill you because you're Eliyahu Hanavi. And as hine no say lo as brisi shalom. He's going to live forever. But you can't stay here because you're not sticking up for the people. You're speaking bad of them. So what are you going to do? You're going to go in Shemayim. And every time there's a bris, every time a Jewish boy has a bris, you're going to be there to see it. Because you said, as Azvu brischa, you said over and over, Azvu brischa b'nei Yisrael, the Jewish people, they left your bris. Really? You said they left the bris? You're going to go down. Elio malach habris. There's a kisei shel Elio. He's there to witness, to eat his word, so to speak. Again, I'm talking about Elio Hanavi, but this is what the Radvan says. So the lesson is two lessons. Rabbi Frand explains there are two lessons from this Radvaz. Lesson number one is that speaking ill of Klal Yisrael is a dangerous occupation. Of course, there are some times when you have to give mussar to people and you have to tell people to straighten out their ways, but the default position is we speak up for Klal Yisrael. We don't indict Jewish people. And it doesn't matter, of course, whether someone is observing like this or observing like that, a tragedy, doesn't matter. And what we need is unity, not disunity, not fragmentation. I want to be with my group, and I don't know what happened to those people. I don't know about that, because I'm seeing more and more of that. There have been some statements about those people. That's dangerous talk, and we should be able to feel the pain no matter who it is, whether it's this kind of Jew or that kind of Jew. There's no distinction. Say, oh, Azvu brischa b'nei Yisrael. Be careful before you say that. And another lesson is for parenting, thinking about what Hashem said, how He deals with things. Because Hashem says, I can bring wind and I can bring fire and you might say, well, sometimes He does. But that's not the default position. Usually, all of that comes and it washes away other things, not people, not the Bnei Yisrael. Kol d'mamadaka. And in parenting, in the house, maybe sometimes you feel like you have to have a rash and a yell and a pound on the table or use your hands or whatever. It's not the parenting class. We talked about that. But the default position is not that. The default position is not to be an example out of fear. It is to be a kol d'mamadaka, a thin, still voice. That's the high ground. That's encouraging. That's affirming. That's supporting. And it's not giving in to what the child wants to do or doesn't want to do. But it's not a rash. It's not aish. So in this during this time when we're still, the Jewish people as a whole are still going through a lot, we're in this Aser Simei Tshuva period, think about what forgiveness came from. Forgiveness came from this whole concept of teshuvah, that we can, everything can get wiped away and we can start clean. That came from this, from Moshe's ability to stick out his neck for other people, for the rest of the people. And he didn't say, those people, they're not my type. Those people, they're not really from. That's exactly what he didn't say. He stuck up for them. And so we have to educate our children to always stick up for the Bnei Yisrael. We stick up for the Jewish people, and we lead by example, not by fear, but by example. By Kol Dama Madaka, that's how we're going to have a home where the children are proud of their identities, and they will be supportive of each other. And we should all be zocha by increasing the unity between the different types of Klal Yisrael, that we become one. And when we become one, that's the prerequisite for Geula. Because Hashem is one, and Hashem needs to be able to connect with a people that's one, not when it's fragmented. So we shall be zocha to see the Geula Shlema and Besuras Tovos Meher B'Mein Amen.